The massive alien warship hung in space like a dark cloud. Its jagged edges and strange glowing ports made it look nothing like the smooth human ships nearby. Commander Zakthar stood on the command deck of his vessel, the inevitable dominance. 6 thin arms crossed over his chitinous chest as he stared at the blue-green planet on the main screen. "These humans are testing my patience," Zakthar said. His voice was like stones grinding together. The other aliens on the bridge kept their distance. They knew the commander's reputation for sudden violence when annoyed. "They have asked for more time to consider our demands," said First Officer Grell. His antennae twitched nervously. For the third time, Zikthar's compound eyes narrowed. Each of his 6 eyes could move independently, but now they all focused on the image of Earth. They are not considering. They are stalling. The hegemony does not tolerate disrespect. The galactic hegemony had arrived in Earth's solar system 3 days ago. Their demands were simple. Earth would join the hegemony as a slave world, or they would face consequences. The humans had responded by asking for time to discuss the terms. Zakthar now realized this was just a trick. On the Earth Defense Fleet, Flagship Horizon, Captain Susan Miller rubbed her tired eyes. She hadn't slept more than 4 hours since the aliens arrived. "Any response to our latest message?" she asked. Communications Officer Diane Rodriguez shook her head. "Nothing yet, Captain, but they're still watching us. All their weapons systems remain active." Susan nodded and looked around the bridge. Her crew was tired but focused. Joe Barnes at Tactical kept his eyes on the weapon readouts. Linda Hayes, their xenobiologist, was studying the limited scans they had of the alien biology. "What do we know about them, Linda?" Susan asked. Linda looked up from her screen. "Not much more than yesterday. Insectoid features, exoskeleton, 6 limbs. Their atmosphere seems to have more methane than ours. Based on their communications, they have a strict hierarchy and expect immediate obedience. Which explains why they're getting annoyed with us," Susan said. She walked to the large window and looked at the alien ship. It was at least 5 times larger than the horizon. "Captain," called Andy Edwards from the sensor station, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the alien vessel." Susan turned quickly. "Weapons?" "I don't think so," Andy said, frowning at his screen. "It's different from their weapon signatures. More biological." The main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The alien commander's face filled the screen. Zikathar looked even angrier than during their previous conversations, if that was possible for an insect face to show. "Captain Miller," the alien said in its harsh, translated voice, "your time for consideration has ended. You have proven that humans cannot be trusted to join the hegemony peacefully." Susan stepped forward. "Commander Zikathar, we simply need more time to—" "Silence!" the alien commander barked. "You will learn the price of defying the hegemony. We will not destroy your planet, as you have resources we need, but you will no longer command yourselves." The screen went dark. Susan turned to Joe Barnes. "Battle stations, all hands prepare for—" "Captain," Andy interrupted. "They've launched something. Small object, pod-sized, heading straight for us." "Evasive maneuvers," Susan ordered. The helmsman, Pete Wilson, tried to move the large ship, but the pod was too fast. It struck the outer hull near Cargo Bay 3. "Impact in section C12, Joe reported. "No explosion. The pod. It seems to have attached itself to our hull." Susan hit the shipwide comm button. "Security team to section C12, full containment protocols." Security Chief Frank Martinez led his team through the corridors at a run. All 6 officers wore the new hazard suits designed by Dr. Olivia Wright. The suits would protect against known alien pathogens and weapons. "Remember," Frank told his team as they approached the cargo section, "we have no idea what's in that. Pod could be a bomb, could be troops, could be a virus. Take no chances." Officer Caitlin Moore nodded, checking her pulse rifle. "Ready, Chief?" They reached the sealed doors to Cargo Bay 3. Through the small window they could see the alien pod. It had melted through the outer hull and now sat on the metal floor, steaming slightly. It was oval-shaped and about the size of a small refrigerator. "Dr. Wright, are you seeing this?" Frank asked into his comm. "In the science lab, Dr. Olivia Wright and her assistant Sam Green watched the security team's video feed. "We see it, Chief. Readings show the pod's surface. Temperature is cooling rapidly. No radiation, no toxic gas detected so far." "We're going in," Frank said. He nodded to his team and they entered the cargo bay in formation, weapons ready. On the command deck, Susan and her officers watched through the security team's cameras. Everyone held their breath as Frank approached the alien pod. "It's moving," Frank reported. The surface of the pod was shifting, sections of it becoming transparent. On the alien ship, Commander Zakthar watched the humans through remote sensors. "The beast has arrived," he said, his voice filled with cruel satisfaction. "Soon they will understand true terror." Science Officer Vexilor stood beside him. "The beast has never failed us, Commander. Within hours, the humans will be in such psychological distress that they will beg to surrender." The pod on the horizon suddenly split open. A thick mist poured out, briefly obscuring the security team's cameras. Frank and his officers took a step back, weapons aimed at the opening. "I see movement," Frank reported, his voice tense. The mist cleared. Inside the pod, something small shifted in a nest of strange, glowing fibers. The security team moved closer, cautiously. "What is that?" Caitlin asked, lowering her weapon slightly. A small creature emerged from the fibers. It was about the size of a house cat, with soft blue-gray fur covering its round body. 6 large eyes blinked open, each a different color of the rainbow. It had 4 tiny paws and a pair of fluffy ears that twitched as it looked around the cargo bay. When it saw the humans, it made a soft chirping sound. Captain," Frank said, confusion clear in his voice. "I think you need to see this." On the bridge, everyone stared at the screen in disbelief. "That's their weapon?" Joe asked. "It looks like a stuffed toy." The creature chirped again and took a tentative step toward Frank. It tilted its head to one side, studying him with curious eyes. "Dr. Hayes?" Susan called to the xenobiologist. "Any ideas?" Linda was already scanning the creature. "It's definitely alive. Warm-blooded, despite coming from an insectoid species. I'm not detecting any obvious weapons or toxic components, but I need more data." The creature sat down and began to groom its fur with a tiny pink tongue. In the alien ship, Commander Zakthar watched the humans' reactions with growing anticipation. "How long until the beast's effect begins?" he asked. "The empathic field is already active," Vexler replied. "The humans should be experiencing the first stages of terror now." On the horizon, Caitlin had knelt down to get a better look at the creature. It hopped toward her with another cheerful chirp. "Chief," she said to Frank, "it's kind of cute." Frank frowned. "Stay back more, we don't know what it can do." But the creature had reached Caitlin. It looked up at her with its rainbow eyes and made a purring sound. Then, to everyone's surprise, it rubbed its head against her leg, just like a cat might do. "Oh my God," Caitlin said softly. "It's adorable." Dr. Olivia Wright hurried down the corridor toward the quarantine lab. Her assistant Sam Green struggled to keep up with her quick pace. "I don't understand," Sam said. "If this is a weapon, what does it do? Bite? Spray poison?" "That's what we need to find out," Olivia replied. She pushed through the lab doors where Security Chief Frank Martinez waited with the containment unit. Inside the clear box, the blue-gray furry creature sat calmly, watching them with its 6 rainbow-colored eyes. "Has it done anything dangerous?" Olivia asked, putting on gloves. Frank shook his head. "Nothing. Officer Moore wanted to adopt it. He didn't sound happy. I had to order her to stop petting it." Olivia studied the creature. It was undeniably cute with its round body, tiny paws, and those huge expressive eyes. When it noticed her attention, it moved to the front of the box and placed one paw against the clear wall. Then it made a chirping sound that somehow seemed hopeful. "Let's run some tests," she said, fighting the strange urge to open the box and hold the little thing. On the bridge of the horizon, Captain Susan Miller received another transmission from the alien ship. Commander Zakathar's insect face filled the screen. Captain Miller, the alien said, voice harsh and clicking. How are you enjoying our gift? Susan kept her face neutral. Commander Zakthar, we're still evaluating the creature you sent us. The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly. Yes, the beast. Tell me, are your crew members experiencing great distress? Are they begging for mercy yet? Susan frowned. I'm not sure what you mean. The terror, Zekthar snapped. The mental breakdown. The beast's empathic field should be reducing your strongest warriors to weeping larvae by now. Susan glanced at Joe Barnes, who raised an eyebrow. I see, she said carefully. Would you mind holding for just a moment, Commander? Without waiting for an answer, she muted the transmission. Get me Dr. Wright now. In the lab, Olivia and Sam had just completed their first round of scans when the call came through. Doctor, what can you tell me about this creature? Susan asked. The alien commander seems to think it should be causing terror and mental breakdowns. Olivia looked at her results. That's strange, Captain. Our scans show it's producing some kind of neurological field, but it's not harmful. If anything, it seems to produce effects similar to oxytocin and serotonin in human brains, feelings of contentment and bonding. So it's making us happy? Susan asked. Essentially, yes. Everyone who's been near it reports feelings of warmth and well-being. Officer Moore is practically in love with it. Susan thought for a moment. Keep studying it. I need to speak with our alien friends. She switched back to the transmission where Commander Zakthar was waiting, his compound eyes twitching with impatience. Commander, Susan said, could you tell me more about this beast and its expected effects? Zakthar seemed pleased by the question. The beast is our most powerful psychological weapon. Its empathic field targets the fear center in sentient brains, amplifying terror until the victim cannot function. Entire civilizations have surrendered rather than spend another hour in its presence. He leaned closer to the screen. How many of your crew have taken their own lives so far? Susan controlled her expression. None, actually. Our species appears to be responding differently. On the alien ship, Science Officer Vexilor approached the commander with obvious anxiety. Commander, our sensors indicate the human's brain activity is not matching expected patterns. There are no stress hormones, no panic responses. Zakthar hissed in anger. Impossible. The beast has broken the will of 17 species. Back in the lab, Sam was playing with the creature. He had convinced Olivia to let it out of the containment box once their tests showed it carried no harmful bacteria or viruses. The little animal sat on the exam table, purring as Sam scratched behind its ears. I think it likes me, Sam said with a smile. Olivia nodded, reviewing her latest scans. It's producing stronger empathic fields now that it's in direct contact with you. But instead of fear, you're experiencing increased happiness? Definitely, Sam confirmed. It's like holding a puppy and eating chocolate at the same time. The creature made a trilling sound and nuzzled against Sam's hand. When Olivia approached, it looked up at her with its rainbow eyes and chirped hopefully. I think it wants you to pet it too, Sam said. Olivia hesitated, then stroked the creature's soft fur. A warm feeling spread through her chest. Oh, she said softly. That's nice. The lab door opened and Linda Hayes, the xenobiologist, entered. She stopped when she saw the creature free on the table. Is that safe? It's perfectly harmless, Olivia said, still petting the creature. In fact, it seems to be having the opposite effect of what the aliens intended. Linda approached cautiously. What do you mean? The aliens call it the beast. It's supposed to cause terror and psychological breakdown through its empathic field. But in humans, it seems to trigger feelings of affection and well-being instead. The creature looked at Linda and made an inviting chirp. Despite herself, Linda smiled. May I? She asked, reaching out slowly. As soon as she touched the soft fur, her smile widened. Oh, it's like finding something you've been missing your whole life. On the bridge, Captain Susan Miller made a decision. Commander Zakthar, perhaps you should see how your beast is affecting us. She nodded to Diane at Communications, who transferred the video feed from the lab to the transmission. The alien commander watched in disbelief as 3 humans petted and played with the beast. The creature was chirping happily, rolling onto its back as Sam rubbed its belly. This is impossible, Zakthar sputtered. The beast induces madness, terror, despair. Not in humans, apparently, Susan said. We find it quite charming. Zakthar's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Susan guessed was extreme agitation. What trick is this? Have you neutralized its empathic field? No trick, Commander. It seems our brains simply interpret the field differently than other species you've encountered. In the lab, the creature had climbed onto Linda's shoulder and was nuzzling her neck, making her laugh. It tickles. I think we need to give it a name. How about Fluffy? Sam suggested. Fluffy the Beast? Olivia considered it. I like it. The creature, now Fluffy, chirped as if in approval. On the alien ship, Commander Zakthar turned to his science officer in rage. Explain this failure. Vexilor's antennae drooped in submission. I cannot, Commander. Perhaps human brain structure is uniquely unsuited to the beast's influence? We have never deployed it against this species before. You told me it would work, Zakthar hissed, raising one of his 6 arms threateningly. All simulations indicated success, Vexilor insisted, backing away. This is unprecedented. Captain Susan Miller watched the aliens argue on her screen. She could not understand their native language, but the conflict was obvious. Finally, Zikathar turned back to the transmission. This is not over, human. He growled. If the beast has failed, we have other methods. The transmission cut off abruptly. Susan sighed and turned to Joe Barnes. Keep all weapon systems ready. I don't think the commander takes disappointment well. Yes, Captain, Joe replied. Should we continue studying the creature? Susan nodded. Absolutely. If their weapon makes us happy instead of afraid, I want to know why. It might give us an advantage. In the lab, Fluffy had fallen asleep on Linda's lap. The xenobiologist stroked its fur gently as Olivia took more readings. Its brain activity changes when it sleeps, Olivia noted. The empathic field gets stronger, not weaker. Sam yawned. Is that why I suddenly feel so relaxed? Linda nodded, feeling drowsy herself. I think it's bonding with us. Fluffy purred in its sleep, 6 tiny paws twitching as it dreamed. Whatever the aliens had intended, the humans had gained not a weapon of terror, but a source of comfort. And in the face of an alien invasion, that might be exactly what they needed. Commander Zakthar paced the bridge of the inevitable dominance, his 6 legs clicking against the metal floor. The crew kept their distance. They had seen the commander break a subordinate's exoskeleton for smaller failures than this. 3 cycles, Zakthar hissed. 3 cycles and the humans show no signs of mental breakdown. He stopped in front of Science Officer Vexler. Explain. Vexler's antennae drooped with anxiety. We have been analyzing the data, Commander. It appears the human brain processes the beast's empathic field through different neural pathways than other species we have encountered. And this means? Zakthar demanded. Instead of triggering fear responses, it seems to activate their nurturing instincts. It makes them feel protective. Happy, even. Zikthar's mandibles clicked furiously. You mean we gave the humans a pet? Vexler's forearms gestured nervously. Essentially, yes. The commander turned to the view screen showing the Earth vessel. Prepare the pulse cannons. If we cannot break their minds, we will break their ship. On the horizon, Captain Susan Miller called an emergency meeting. Around the conference table sat her senior officers, Joe Barnes from Tactical, Linda Hayes, the xenobiologist, Dr. Olivia Wright, Security Chief Frank Martinez, and Communications Officer Diane Rodriguez. In the center of the table, Fluffy sat grooming its blue-gray fur, occasionally looking up with its rainbow eyes to chirp at whoever was speaking. Dr. Wright, what have you learned? Susan asked. Olivia handed out tablets with her findings. The Creature Fluffy produces an empathic field that directly affects brain chemistry. In most species, it seems this triggers extreme fear responses. But in humans, it stimulates our oxytocin and serotonin production. Making us feel good, Joe said, reaching over to scratch Fluffy behind the ears. The creature purred in response. More than that, Linda added. It creates feelings of bonding and protectiveness, the same chemicals released when parents look at their children or when we interact with our pets. Basically, we're hardwired to find Fluffy adorable. Frank frowned. So this is some kind of psychological warfare that backfired. The aliens expected us to be terrified, but instead we just want to cuddle it. Exactly, Olivia confirmed. And there's more. Fluffy is intelligent, roughly on par with a smart dog or a young child. It's learning our behaviors rapidly. As if, to demonstrate, Fluffy stood up on its hind legs and made a saluting gesture with its front paw, mimicking the motion Frank often made. Several people around the table laughed. The most interesting finding, Linda continued, is that Fluffy seems to be adapting its empathic field to us. It's becoming more attuned to human brain patterns. The bonding effect is getting stronger. Susan nodded thoughtfully. So what does this mean for us strategically? Two things, Olivia said. First, the aliens clearly don't understand human psychology as well as they thought. That's an advantage for us. Second, Fluffy might be more than just a failed weapon. It could be a communication bridge. Susan raised an eyebrow. How so? Fluffy can sense our emotions through its empathic abilities. And it can project emotions back. If we could find a way to direct this, to focus it. The meeting was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Joe's tablet beeped with an urgent notification. Captain, the alien vessel is charging weapons. Susan stood. Quickly. Everyone to battle stations. Doctor, get Fluffy somewhere safe. As the crew dispersed, Olivia scooped up Fluffy and hurried toward the lab. The creature seemed to sense the tension, its ears flattening against its head and its chirps becoming more urgent. It's okay, Olivia told it as they rushed through the corridors. You'll be safe. But Fluffy wasn't worried for itself. As they reached the lab, the creature squirmed out of Olivia's arms and ran to her computer terminal. It stood on its hind legs and pointed at the screen, chirping insistently. What is it? Olivia asked, confused. Then she noticed that Fluffy was pointing specifically at the communication icon. You want to send a message? Fluffy nodded, its round head an unmistakably human gesture it had learned. Olivia hesitated, then activated the terminal. To whom? The creature made a series of clicks and hisses, a crude imitation of the alien commander's speech. On the bridge, Captain Susan Miller watched as the alien vessel's weapon ports began to glow. Shields at maximum, she ordered. Prepare evasive maneuvers. Captain, Diane called from communications. Dr. Wright is requesting an open channel to the alien ship. She says it's urgent. Susan frowned. Put her through. Olivia's face appeared on the small screen at Susan's chair. Captain, this might sound crazy, but Fluffy wants to communicate with Commander Zakthar. Doctor, we're about to be under attack. I know, but Fluffy is very insistent. I think it might be able to reach them in a way we can't. Susan looked at the main view screen where the alien ship loomed. Their diplomatic efforts had failed. What did they have to lose? Open a channel, Diane. On the alien ship, Commander Zakthar was about to give the order to fire when his communications officer interrupted. Commander, the human vessel is hailing us. Ignore them, Zakthar snapped. Sir, our sensors indicate the beast is part of the transmission. Zakthar paused. Show me. The view screen activated, showing Captain Miller on the human bridge. Commander Zakthar, she said. Before you attack, someone wants to speak with you. The image shifted to a laboratory, where the beast sat on a desk next to a human female. Zakthar's compound eyes widened in surprise. The beast was supposed to be causing chaos among the humans, not sitting calmly in their communication center. Then something even more unexpected happened. The beast looked directly at the camera and began producing a series of clicks and hisses, a crude approximation of the hegemony language. Science Officer Vexler gasped. "Commander, it's attempting to communicate in our native tongue." "Impossible," Zekthar said, but he couldn't deny what he was seeing. "What is it saying?" Vexelor listened carefully. "It's difficult to interpret, but I believe it's saying, 'No harm and friendship.'" In the lab aboard the Horizon, Olivia watched in amazement as Fluffy continued its strange communication. The creature's empathic field had intensified, filling the room with a sense of calm and hope. "It's trying to prevent the attack," Olivia realized. She turned to the camera. "Captain, I think Fluffy is attempting to negotiate peace." On the bridge, Susan leaned forward in her chair. "Can it succeed?" "I don't know, but its empathic abilities are stronger than we realized. It might be able to influence the aliens' emotions, just as it influences ours, but in the opposite direction, making them feel calm instead of aggressive." On the alien ship, Commander Zekthar felt a strange sensation creeping through his mind. The beast's gaze seemed to bore into him through the view screen, and with it came unfamiliar feelings: hesitation, curiosity, and something almost like warmth. "What trickery is this?" he demanded, but his voice lacked its usual harshness. "No, trick," Captain Miller replied. "Just a different kind of communication. Commander, what you sent as a weapon we see as a friend. Perhaps there's a lesson in that." Zekthar looked at the beast, at Fluffy, and for the first time, he saw it not as a tool of terror, but as a living creature, one that had adapted to its new environment in unexpected ways. Something in the commander's rigid thinking began to soften. "Stand down weapons," he ordered, surprising his crew. "I wish to learn more about this development." A day later, Captain Susan Miller stood nervously in the Horizon's main docking bay. Beside her were Dr. Olivia Wright, Linda Hayes, and Security Chief Frank Martinez. Frank's team lined the walls, weapons visible but not raised. "Are you sure about this?" Frank asked quietly. Susan nodded. "We need to take this chance. Fluffy has given us an opening we didn't have before." In her arms, Fluffy sat calmly, its 6 rainbow eyes watching the large airlock door. The creature had been strangely focused all morning, as if it understood the importance of what was about to happen. The airlock indicators changed from red to green. Air hissed as pressure equalized, and the massive doors slowly slid open. Commander Zekthar stood on the other side. He was taller than the humans had realized from the video communications, nearly 7 feet of armored exoskeleton and sharp angles. Behind him stood Science Officer Vexelor and 2 heavily armed guards. Susan stepped forward. "Commander Zekthar, welcome aboard the Horizon." The alien commander's compound eyes shifted rapidly, taking in the human delegation and the armed security personnel. When his gaze landed on Fluffy, his mandibles clicked once. "Captain Miller," he said, his harsh voice translated by a small device at his throat. "I have come to observe this unexpected situation personally." Fluffy chirped and squirmed in Susan's arms. She carefully set the creature down on the floor. Everyone watched as Fluffy approached the alien commander without fear. Zekthar stiffened. His guards raised their weapons slightly. "It's okay," Olivia said quickly. "Fluffy is just trying to establish contact." The furry creature stopped a few feet from Zekthar and sat back on its hind legs. Then it made that same saluting gesture it had learned from Frank, followed by a series of clicks and chirps that approximated the alien language. Vexelor leaned toward his commander. "Remarkable mimicry. And it's attempting our formal greeting." Zekthar didn't move. The beast was never designed to communicate. It was created only to inspire fear. "Yet here we are," Susan said. "Commander, would you and your science officer like to join us in our conference room? Dr. Wright has prepared a presentation on our findings." The aliens followed the human delegation through the corridors of the Horizon. Crew members stopped and stared as the insectoid visitors passed. Fluffy trotted alongside the group, occasionally, looking back as if making sure everyone was following. In the conference room, Olivia displayed her research on the large screen. As you can see, the empathic field affects these areas of the human brain, she explained, pointing to the colorful brain scan. In humans, these are associated with bonding and positive emotions. Vexilor moved closer to the screen, fascinated. In most species we've encountered, those same pathways trigger fear responses. He turned to his commander. This could explain the failure of the beast as a weapon against humans. Zikathar remained stiff and formal. A curious anomaly, but irrelevant. The hegemony still requires Earth submission. Susan was about to respond when Fluffy suddenly jumped onto the conference table. The creature walked to the center and sat down, looking directly at Zakathar. Then something strange happened. Fluffy's fur began to glow softly, pulsing with gentle waves of blue light. The 6 rainbow eyes grew brighter, and the empathic field in the room intensified dramatically. Linda gasped. It's never done this before. Everyone in the room felt the change. For the humans, it was like a wave of warmth and comfort, stronger than anything they had experienced from Fluffy previously. But the aliens reacted differently. Zikathar took a step back, his rigid posture faltering. Vexilor grabbed the edge of the table, his antennae vibrating rapidly. What is happening? The commander demanded, but his harsh voice had softened. I think Fluffy is trying to communicate directly, Olivia said quietly, through emotions rather than words. The glowing creature turned slowly in a circle, making eye contact with each person, human and alien, in the room. With each gaze, images and feelings flowed into their minds. Stars seen from unfamiliar worlds, the wonder of discovering new life, the joy of understanding, the peace of cooperation. Vexilor sank into a chair. Impossible. The beast was never given these abilities. Maybe it always had them, Linda suggested, but was never allowed to use them. Zikathar stood transfixed, his compound eyes reflecting the blue glow from Fluffy's fur. For the first time, in his long military career, the commander felt something beyond ambition and conquest, a glimpse of what it might be like to explore rather than subjugate. Fluffy chirped softly and the glow faded. The creature looked tired but satisfied. What did you do to me? Zakathar asked, his voice unusually quiet. Susan stepped forward. I think Fluffy showed you another way of seeing us. Not as enemies or subjects, but as potential allies. The commander's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed this new perspective. The hegemony does not make allies. It makes conquests. Perhaps that's why you've never encountered a species like ours before, Susan suggested. One that turns your weapons of fear into bridges of understanding. Vexilor turned to his commander. Sir, this development merits further study. The beast, Fluffy, has evolved capabilities beyond its original design. This could be valuable to the hegemony. Zikathar was silent for a long moment. Then he made a gesture that the humans didn't recognize, a complex movement of all 6 arms that seemed almost ceremonial. The High Council must be informed, he finally said. We will postpone any military action while we investigate this phenomenon. Susan felt a surge of hope. We welcome scientific exchange, Commander. Perhaps we could start by learning more about Fluffy's species and origins. Across the table, Fluffy chirped happily, as if understanding that its intervention had created a break in the tension. The creature hopped down from the table and, to everyone's surprise, walked directly to Commander Zakathar. The alien commander looked down at the furry creature that his people had engineered as a weapon of terror. Fluffy looked up at him with those 6 rainbow eyes, then did something that no one expected. It gently placed one tiny paw against Zakathar's armored leg. The room went silent. The security team tensed, expecting the commander to react violently. Instead, Zikathar slowly, very slowly lowered one of his 6 arms. With a delicacy that seemed impossible for his armored limbs, he touched the top of Fluffy's head with a single finger. Fluffy purred. Vexilor's antennae twitched in shock. Commander? Zakathar quickly withdrew his hand. For scientific observation, he said stiffly. But something had changed in his demeanor. Susan and Olivia exchanged looks. The captain had to hide a smile. Even an alien commander wasn't immune to Fluffy's charm. Perhaps, Susan suggested, we could share a meal while discussing our next steps. We've prepared food suitable for your biology. Zikthar straightened his posture. Acceptable. And I wish your scientists to explain more about human neural responses. As the unusual delegation moved toward the dining area, Fluffy trotted between humans and aliens, occasionally chirping as if adding to the conversation. What had begun as an act of war had somehow transformed into the first tentative steps toward peace. A week had passed since the first meeting between humans and the hegemony aliens. The inevitable dominance remained in orbit near the horizon, but no weapons had been charged. Instead, shuttles moved back and forth between the ships as scientists from both species shared information. In the main laboratory of the horizon, Dr. Olivia Wright worked alongside Science Officer Vexilor. Despite their completely different biologies, the two had developed an efficient working relationship. Both were fascinated by Fluffy, who sat on a special cushion between their workstations. The genetic modifications are remarkable, Vexilor said, his forearms moving across multiple screens. The beast, Fluffy, was designed to target fear responses in most sentient species. Olivia nodded. But whoever created it didn't account for human brain structure. Instead of fear, we experience affection and bonding. Fluffy chirped happily, its 6 rainbow eyes following their conversation. Over the past week, the creature had continued to learn and adapt. It now understood dozens of human words and could make simple requests using a tablet that Sam Green had programmed for it. Vexilor's antennae twitched thoughtfully. What is most interesting is how its abilities have expanded beyond its original design. The empathic projection it demonstrated was never part of its programming. Maybe it was always capable of more than being a weapon, Olivia suggested. It just needed the right environment to develop. Fluffy picked up its tablet and tapped a few symbols. A synthesized voice said, "Friend, happy, together." Both scientists looked at the small creature with surprise. It was the most complex statement Fluffy had made yet. On the bridge, Captain Susan Miller met with Commander Zikthar. The alien leader had changed subtly over the past week. He still stood rigid and formal, but there was less hostility in his posture. "The High Council has reviewed our reports," Zikthar said. "They are intrigued by the unique properties of human neural pathways." Susan nodded carefully. "And have they reconsidered their demand for Earth's surrender?" Ziktar's mandibles clicked once. "The situation has become more complex. Your species represents something we have not encountered before. The Council wishes to study humans further before making any final decisions. It wasn't a promise of peace, but it was better than imminent attack." Susan felt cautiously optimistic. "There is another matter," Zikthar continued. "The beast, the creature you call Fluffy, has demonstrated abilities beyond its design parameters. The Council is concerned." Susan frowned. "Concerned how?" "They fear it may be evolving too quickly, becoming something unpredictable. They have ordered me to retrieve it and return it to the hegemony for study and possible reconfiguration." Susan's heart sank. After a week, everyone on the horizon had grown attached to Fluffy. The creature wandered freely through the ship, bringing smiles wherever it went. The thought of handing it over to be reconfigured was deeply troubling. "I understand your orders, Commander," she said carefully. "But I should warn you that my crew has formed strong bonds with Fluffy. Taking it away would be difficult. In the lab, Fluffy suddenly sat up straight, its ears twitching as if listening to something far away. Olivia noticed the change. "What is it?" she asked. Fluffy jumped down from its cushion and ran to the door, pawing at it urgently. When Olivia opened it, the creature darted into the corridor, moving faster than she had ever seen it move. "Where is it going?" Vexilor asked. "I don't know, but we should follow it," Olivia replied, hurrying after Fluffy with the alien scientist close behind. Fluffy raced through the corridors of the horizon, passing surprised crew members. It seemed to know exactly where it was going. When it reached the bridge, it somehow managed to activate the door controls with its paws. Susan and Commander Zikthar turned in surprise as Fluffy burst into the room. The creature ran straight to Susan and began making urgent chirping sounds. "What's happening?" Susan asked as Olivia and Vexler caught up, slightly out of breath. "I don't know," Olivia said. "It just suddenly became agitated and ran here." Fluffy picked up a tablet from a nearby console and tapped at it frantically. The synthesized voice said, "No-go, stay, family." Commander Zakthar's compound eyes focused on the small creature. Remarkable. It understood our conversation from across the ship. "The empathic field," Vexler said with wonder. "It must have sensed the commander's intentions." Fluffy's fur began to glow again, this time with pulses of many colors. It looked directly at Zikthar, and the air in the room seemed to thicken with emotion. Everyone present felt a complex wave of feelings: determination, hope, belonging, and something like love. Images flowed into their minds, Fluffy playing with crew members helping in the lab, learning from humans and aliens alike. And beneath these memories was a powerful message, not in words, but in pure feeling. I belong here. I am more than a weapon. I am myself. Commander Zikthar stood very still, his alien features unreadable. When Fluffy's glow faded, the commander turned to Susan. "Your species has changed this creature," he said. "Or perhaps it has changed itself because of you. Either way, it is no longer what the hegemony created." "Is that good or bad?" Susan asked. Zikthar was silent for a moment. "It is unexpected. The hegemony does not cope well with the unexpected, but I have learned much in this past week." He turned to address Fluffy directly. "You wish to stay with the humans?" Fluffy chirped an affirmative and tapped on its tablet. "Stay, learn, help." The commander made that complex gesture with his 6 arms again, the one that seemed ceremonial. "Then I will inform the council that retrieving you would be inadvisable. The diplomatic complications would be significant." Susan tried not to show her relief too openly. "Thank you, Commander." Zikthar turned back to her. "This does not resolve the larger situation between our peoples, Captain. But it does change it. If one creature can adapt so dramatically to cross the gap between our species, perhaps there are other possibilities we have not considered." 3 days later, the crews of both ships gathered in the horizon's largest bay to witness the signing of the first treaty between Earth and the galactic hegemony. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it established a research exchange and a 1-year period of non-aggression while both sides learned more about each other. In the center of it all sat Fluffy, now wearing a specially made collar that identified it as an official interspecies communication specialist. The creature that had been sent as a weapon of terror had become a symbol of unexpected connection. As Captain Susan Miller and Commander Zikthar pressed their thumbprints to the treaty document, human hand and alien claw side by side, Fluffy began to purr loudly enough for everyone to hear. "It seems pleased," Zikthar observed. Susan smiled. "It should be. None of this would have happened without it." The commander's mandibles moved in what might have been the alien equivalent of a thoughtful expression. "The hegemony has conquered 87 worlds across 12 star systems. We have never been stopped by force of arms." "And now?" Susan asked. Zikthar looked down at Fluffy, who gazed back with its 6 rainbow eyes. "Now we have been stopped by something we never anticipated, a weapon that became a bridge, fear that became understanding." He made a sound Susan had never heard before, possibly a laugh. "The universe, it seems, has a sense of humor," Fluffy chirped in agreement. "Sometimes, the most unexpected things turned out to be exactly what everyone needed."